comes the sun.
George Harrison was a former member of the wildly popular band The Beatles, and after they broke up, his creativity blossomed as he emerged from behind John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Paul Simon was the driving force behind the folk rock group Simon and Garfunkel. Their success in the 1960s was largely due to his harmonic, humanistic songwriting, which had a similar effect. Because they could relate to one another and were venturing into uncharted terrain as solo musicians, Harrison and Simon both left behind the thing that had made them famous. Eventually, the two became close friends. Paul Simon was impressed by George's ability to keep his unusual humility in the face of celebrity, in addition to his brilliance. However, George frequently shied away from the spotlight, even though he was composing, producing, and releasing albums non-stop in the 10 years following the Beatles' breakup. One occasion in 1976, Paul Simon persuaded Harrison to join him for a beautiful rendition of "Here Comes the Sun" on television, marking his first appearance on the show in a number of years. Their uncommon appearance together on Saturday Night Live, the popular U.S. comedy program, would lead to a friendship that persisted until George's passing. Paul Simon was selected to host Saturday Night Live and perform as a musical guest. He sang the Simon and Garfunkel hit song, "Bridge Over Troubled Water," as well as the hits "Still Crazy After All These Years" and "50 Ways to Leave Your Lover." Paul Simon was born on November 20th, 1976. It was unexpected to have George join her for a duet of "Here Comes the Sun," considering his distaste for these kinds of shows. Still, he contributed to a few of the skits, one of which parodied the producer of the show, Lorna Michaels' running joke about getting the Fab Four back together for an absurdly low price. George and Paul took to stools together, acoustic guitars in hand, and performed 4 songs together throughout the show, 2 of which were pre-recorded. Although George should have performed one of his solo songs, "Here Comes the Sun" from the Beatles' 1969 album Abbey Road is still a beloved tune by fans. Their chemistry was immediately apparent as they traded verses throughout the mellow performance. A couple of Paul Simon songs were included in their repertoire, including the classic "Homeward Bound" from Simon and Garfunkel's 1966 album Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. The two musicians' fans may have thought that this might have spurred a possible studio excursion together. Unfortunately, even though they had a great musical chemistry and a close familial bond, it would never materialize. Paul Simon said of his friendship with Harrison and the performance with George after Harrison passed away on November 29, 2001, "It was an effortless collaboration. The mesh of his guitar and voice with my playing and singing gave our duet an ease and musicality that made me realize how intrinsic and subtle his contribution was to the Beatles' brilliant creative weave. He made musicians sound good without calling attention to himself. During his 2014 appearance on Conan, a late-night talk program, Paul Simon talked about his bond with George. All agree that he was an outstanding man, amazing person who is fearless, honest, and compassionate, in addition to being a musician. He was just ordinary for the most part. Only a small portion of him was a Beatles fan. Simply curious about life, the outside world, and the human mind. A delight to spend time with, Simon continued. He owned numerous ukuleles. You could just hand him a ukulele and say, "Let's play," because he loved to play it. His jukebox was excellent. His jukebox was full of all the music he listened to as a kid, which is pretty much what I listen to too, but with a slight English variation on it, Simon went on.